This moist and decadent chocolate cake is made in a frying pan, if you can believe that. A huge shout out to Emma's Goodies for giving us this idea, but I think you'll see we put our own little twist on it. Okay, so the first step is to melt some butter in a pan over low heat. And if you ask me, watching butter melt in a pan is maybe one of the most satisfying visuals out there, but maybe I'm just easy to please. Once the butter is fully melted, turn off the stove, and if you don't have an induction stove like us, remove it from the stove to avoid residual heating. So the next step is to add the cocoa powder, and what we're doing here is blooming the cocoa powder in the butter. So blooming cocoa powder is just the process of adding it to any sort of hot liquid, and this just really helps to bring out the chocolatey flavor. I know at this point it's going to look really fudgy and delicious, but you shouldn't taste it because it'll just be really bitter. But never fear, because the next step is adding sugar. And we're also adding an egg at this point and then whisking it really well. I should also mention that it's really important that the whisk you use isn't metal. So a metal whisk could scratch the bottom of your pan and essentially ruin it. If you don't have a silicone whisk like ours, just use a spatula or a wooden spoon or something that's not going to scratch. Alright, now that this is looking smooth and delicious, it's time to sift in the flour. Sifting the flour is just going to make it a lot easier to incorporate and make sure that there's no lumps after you mix it. Also add some baking soda because we want this cake to rise, baby! As well as about 1/8 teaspoon of salt, which is going to help bring out all the other flavors. Finally, add about 1/4 cup of milk to hydrate the flour, as well as some vanilla extract. And you might be wondering, why add vanilla if this is a chocolate cake? Well, you're not really going to taste the vanilla, but it's sort of like salt in this instance in that it's going to help enhance all the other flavors, including the chocolate. You can scrape down the sides with a spatula, and if that's not enough, just wipe them down with a bit of paper towel. Now all you need to do is cover the cake with a lid that fits, then cook on low heat for about 10 to 12 minutes. Obviously the timing might vary based on your stove, so make sure you keep an eye on this. When you remove the lid, don't be alarmed at the condensation that's formed on it. It will probably also have caused little indents in the cake, but don't worry because we're going to totally smother this in icing later. We used a skewer to test if it's cooked. Basically what you do is you insert a skewer into the middle of the cake, and when you pull it out, it should come out clean. You can then use a spatula to gently scrape around the sides to make it easier to remove from the pan. Once it's completely loosened from the pan, take it out and set on a drying rack to cool completely. So while the cake was cooling, we mixed together a combination of milk, sweetened condensed milk, and evaporated milk. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's the classic 3-milk mixture in a tres leches cake. Even though tres leches is usually made with a vanilla sponge, we figured that it would be just as good with chocolate. Once the cake is cooled, you can return it back into the same pan, then use a skewer to poke lots of little holes in it. This is also a good way to let out a bit of anger if you need to. Once there's lots of little holes poked in the cake, pour the milk mixture over top. The milk is going to absorb into the cake and make it super, super moist. I'm sorry if you're someone who really hates the word moist, and I'm also sorry for saying it again. Okay, so let's get back to this. While the cake was absorbing the milk, we made a quick white chocolate ganache. And all you need to do for this is to take white chocolate and heavy cream, microwave both of them for 30 seconds, and then combine them together. Obviously, if you're not a white chocolate fan, that's totally fine. You can use milk chocolate, dark chocolate, semi-sweet, whatever. I don't really care. Do what you want. Eventually, you'll have a nice smooth white chocolate ganache that you can pour right onto the cake in the pan. And when I said we're going to smother this in icing, I wasn't kidding. Now just let the ganache settle a little bit so it becomes more firm. Then you can make a slice and it's ready to eat. This cake is so simple and you don't need an oven. I just want to shout out Emma's Goodies again because this is a brilliant idea. If you enjoyed this video, click on one of these other great videos and subscribe for more amazing recipes.